What's up, everyone? Welcome back. My name is Derek. In today's video, we're going to talk about the WWE's merger with Ultimate Fighting Championship, which was officially announced last week, Monday, April 3rd. Now, one of my more recent live streams was a video on the main event for WrestleMania 39 between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. Now, it's unusual for me to do a decode on wrestling, particularly before the match. One of the reasons is because a lot of my viewers, of course you guys already know, pro wrestling is scripted. It's no secret. And those videos don't typically do too well, but this was really big news in the world of sports. A merger between WWE, which is of course staged entertainment, and the UFC, which presents itself as real entertainment. Of course, I do believe they have rigged fights in the past. The level to which UFC is rigged is highly debated among people, but nonetheless, in this video, we're going to talk about this merger and why it occurred on the date it did. Additionally, there were some strange details around this merger, and one of them is the fact that Vince McMahon, the longtime CEO, chairman, and owner of WWE, returned to the company wearing this villainous mustache, kind of a pencil stash that reminded a lot of people of these vaudeville villains. And what a lot of people are missing is that a long time ago, back in 1986, Vince McMahon claimed that he was the Walt Disney of wrestling. Less than 2 months before Walt Disney died, he released a video promoting the new Walt Disney World, particularly the Epcot Center. WWE is based in Stamford, Connecticut, and the same day that this sale was completed, the Yukon Huskies won the college basketball national championship. The team they beat was from San Diego State, and the featured wrestler inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame for WrestleMania weekend was Rey Mysterio Jr., who happens to be from the San Diego area. In fact, his signature move is called the 619, which is named as such after the San Diego area code. Another strange thing that happened at WrestleMania was the appearance by Shane McMahon. And for those of you who saw this, it was really strange, right? Shane McMahon comes out to challenge The Miz on night 2 of WrestleMania, but before the match could really get going, he tears a quadriceps, which forced him down in the ring, and he couldn't complete the match. Now, back in 2005, his father, Vince McMahon, also tore 2 quadriceps at the Royal Rumble. And I'm going to talk about the synchronicity that goes in with that as well. And this all has to do with Donald Trump. The same weekend as WrestleMania and the UFC merger, Donald Trump was indicted in the state of New York. And for many decades, Donald Trump and Vince McMahon have been linked together. Of course, there were 2 WrestleManias hosted at Trump Plaza, WrestleMania 4 and 5. Trump would go on to become the 45th president. And then at WrestleMania 23, McMahon and Trump had a hair versus hair match. And this partnership continued. In 2009, Donald Trump allegedly purchased Monday Night Raw from Vince McMahon. The person that Shane McMahon was fighting in this match at WrestleMania was The Miz, and notice how The Miz's middle name is Gregory. Well, the reason that Donald Trump was indicted was because of his involvement with Stormy Daniels, whose real name is Stephanie Gregory Clifford. Her maiden name, and now middle name, is also Gregory, just like The Miz. So there's a lot more we'll be looking at, but let's go ahead and get started with the numerology. Of course, on this channel, we talk about Gematria, one of the strongest components of numerology that's hidden to most of the public. And if you're wondering why a small YouTube channel with 20,000 subscribers has the keys to this knowledge, well, welcome to the real world. This is certainly some of the most censored content on the internet. And when you compare this language, simple English Gematria, with dates on the calendar, we find there's a lot of alarming coincidences. Of course, English Gematria branches off into the base 4 ciphers, where the alphabet is either reversed or reduced to produce some additional numbers. So, WWE merges with the Ultimate Fighting Championship the same weekend as WrestleMania 39. In the language of Gematria, Ultimate Fighting Championship sums to 312 in ordinal. In the reverse method, WrestleMania 39 also equals 312. Using capital letters, a cipher that extends the alphabetic order to 52, as it includes capital letters in addition to small letters. Notice how Ultimate Fighting Championship sums to 390, just like WrestleMania 39 in reverse. And of course, this number, 390, represents the number 39. WrestleMania 39 this past weekend. The reverse of 39 is 93. And this was clearly a huge number in what took place last weekend, as the WWE was valued at $9.3 billion. Now, original estimates put them at around $5 or $6 billion, so this was a very beneficial deal to the company, $9.3 billion. But as we see in the world of corporatocracy, just like the media, these things are coded by the numbers, and the legitimacy to what's panning out is highly questionable. So 93, this is a highly significant number, and the date that the deal was officially announced was April 3rd, which is the 93rd day of the year. In fact, in the language of Gematria, using the trigonal method, which is the alphabetic order, but with associated triangular numbers. Also, the reverse Sumerian method. Sumerian, a simple cipher which takes the alphabetic order and multiplies it by 6, the first perfect number, the number most closely associated with time. And when you write out April 3rd in these methods, notice how you get double Gematria of 93. And this, of course, is the 93rd day of the year. Now, this is far from a coincidence. The 93rd day of the year, April 3rd, is when many historians believe that Jesus Christ was truly crucified in the year 33. And the number 93 is littered all over the crucifixion. Not only is this the 93rd day of the year, but many people believe that he was hung between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. 9 to 3. So the number 93 is really big here. God's Son equals 93, so does crucifix. Jesus was from Nazareth, another 93. Ancient occultic philosopher Aleister Crowley was responsible for bringing the esoteric movement called Thelema to the masses. And what's so interesting about Thelema is how these people would greet each other. They would literally use the number 93 to say either hello or goodbye. And a big reason the number 93 was so important is because the two tenets of Thelema, will and love, when translated to Greek, have isopsephy values of 93. So if you take the Greek word for Thelema, or will, and drop it in the Greek calculator, you get an isopsephy sum of 93. This isopsephy method is identical to the English standard form of Gematria, 1 through 9, 10 through 90, 100 through 900. The other word, agape, which means love in Greek, also sums to 93. They both have 93 Gematria. Now, people who follow my work know that 93 was a massive number on the September 11th attacks back in 2001. Now, the World Trade Center opened on April 4th, which is one day after the 93rd day of the year. But for the 9/11 attacks, think about how the first flight struck the 93rd floor of the building. The second flight struck just as the clock changed to 9:03 a.m. George W. Bush, the president, first addressed the nation at 9:30, just as the clock turned once again. And then later that day, Flight 93 reportedly crashed in Pennsylvania. So we're going to explain how this sale is connected to 9/11 through these numbers. Now, back in the year 1986, Vince McMahon was on Larry King Live, and in this interview, which aired on June 30th, 1986, of course, 93 plus 93 is 186, so you have the same digits here, and this was on June 30th, 6:30. The number 6 is an upside-down 9. So you can draw 93 from these numbers here as well. Well, during this interview, McMahon claims to be the Walt Disney of wrestling. Now, Walt Disney's full name was Walter Elias Disney, using the S exception of Gematria, which is identical to the full reduction method. However, because S is the 19th letter, 1 plus 9 reduces to 10, and we just keep it there in single reduction. The name Walter Elias Disney sums to 93. And the big hoopla with Vince McMahon is that he had a mustache, much like Walt Disney in his final Epcot video. Well, notice how the word mustache has a Latin gematria value of 487, which is the 93rd prime number. Latin gematria, also called Agrippa's key, what I consider to be the most significant method outside the base 4. Also, the word mustache equals 630 in Sumerian. And remember, 630, June 30th, was the date that he claimed to be the Walt Disney of wrestling. Also, the word mustache sums to 2001 in reverse standard. And of course, the 9/11 attacks were in the year 2001. Measuring from the 9/11 attacks to the announcement of the WWE-UFC merger was 21 years and 204 days. So here we have the numbers 21 and 24. Walt Disney World equals 204 and 201. Vince McMahon equals 204. Walter Elias Disney equals 201. Now, if you measure from Walt Disney's birthday, which fell on December 5th, to the date of this announcement on April 3rd, you get a span of 120 days. Using the alphabetic order, Vince McMahon equals 120. With capital letters, a cipher we reviewed earlier, Vincent Kennedy McMahon has matching 336 gematria with Walter Elias Disney. In prime numbers, the word mustache also equals 336. And on the date of this announcement, Walt Disney would have been 6,330 weeks old, which is the same number but reversed. And how crazy is this, right? I mean, McMahon has never really presented himself in this fashion. He clearly dyed his hair black since he was last seen in public. And it all strikes a strong resemblance, doesn't it? Walt Disney promoting Epcot in this 1966 video from October of that year. And then Walt Disney would die again just 2 months later. So in that video, Walt Disney was promoting the Epcot Center at Walt Disney World, Epcot. In Gematria, Epcot sums to 59 and 76. Well, once again, the same night that the WWE sale was announced, the Yukon Huskies defeated San Diego State by a score of 76 to 59. And again, Connecticut, the same state where WWE has its headquarters. The team that Yukon beat, San Diego State. WWE's feature inductee into the Hall of Fame this year, Rey Mysterio, who's from Chula Vista, which is directly in the San Diego metropolitan area. In Gematria, University of Connecticut sums to 121. And this number stands out for this story because the UFC was valued at $12.1 billion. The UFC's owner is called Endeavor Group Holdings, Inc., which also sums to 121. And look how old Walt Disney would have been the first day of operations, WWE and UFC. 121 years, 121 days. This April 4th date, again, the anniversary of the opening of the World Trade Center, 50 years prior. Also the name Walt on its own, 1021. So again, Walt Disney has this middle name, Elias. It just so happens that in the WWE, there's a wrestler named Elias. And he never had this ring name before he went to WWE. This was given to him by WWE upon his entry into NXT. So what are the odds of this, right? We're talking about these strong connections to Disney, and WWE has an Elias. So notice how the name McMahon has matching 132 gematria with Endeavor, which is the name of the company that it was sold to. This occurred the same weekend as WrestleMania 39, and whether you write out the number 39 or the digits 39, WrestleMania 39 sums to 132 and 1320. Furthermore, World Wrestling Entertainment equals 132, Walt Disney equals 132 ordinal. If you measure from Elias's birthday to the date of the sale announcement, it was 132 days later. Now, if you measure to Elias's next birthday from April 3rd, you get 233 days. Now, why is this so interesting, 233? Well, Elias shares a November 22nd birthday. This is actually the anniversary of the death of JFK, November 22nd. And JFK is another man that Vince McMahon is strongly connected to through the numbers. This year's WrestleMania Night 2 fell 59 years and 131 days after the death of John F. Kennedy. 59 years, 131 days. Well, in Gematria, John F. Kennedy equals 59 in reduction and 131 in ordinal. Notice how the name Kennedy equals 666. Vince McMahon's real name is Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Kennedy McMahon equals 666. The name Vincent Kennedy McMahon equals 666. And the day after the JFK assassination, Vince McMahon turned 6,666 days old. You may recall that when the WWE Network launched back in 2013 or 2014, the price was $9.99, which is an upside-down 666, a number that McMahon loves. And look at the name Vince McMahon in Gematria, 669. And it's also 919. Well, 919 is an upside-down 616. And many people believe the number of the beast is actually 616. So Vince McMahon coded up and down with 666. We'll see more on this in a little bit. But first I want to look at this Elias wrestler who was synced up with the sale of WWE. Notice his full name, Jeffrey Daniel Shulo. Jeffrey Daniel Shulo in Satanic Gematria sums to 911. And think about how we've been talking about how this is all connected to the 9/11 attacks. 911 is the 156th prime number. And check out how this number is coded into World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE, UFC, even WWE UFC, all with this 156 gematria. So the date September 11th can also be written as 11/9, like 119. Walt Disney's Epcot video came out 1 month, 19 days before he died. When Vince McMahon compared himself to Walt Disney, it was 1,019 weeks after Walt Disney died. When the WWE merged with UFC, it was 119 days after Walt Disney's birthday. And check out how Ultimate Fighting Championship sums to 1019 in Latin Gematria. Also, the number 119 is 7 times 17, and the word mustache, 717. So what amazing gematria in the word mustache, right? The 93rd prime for a $9.3 billion deal on the 93rd day of the year. Mustache, 630, like the date that he claims to be the Walt Disney of wrestling. So next I want to talk about this sync that occurred during the WrestleMania 39 event on Sunday, April 2nd, which is the same date that rumors began to swirl about this WWE sale. So just to reiterate, this all went down the same weekend that Donald Trump was indicted for his involvement in the Stormy Daniels case. Trump Plaza played host to WrestleMania 4 and 5. And then Donald Trump would go on to become the 45th president of the United States. In the standard reduction method of gematria, the name Donald sums to 23. For WrestleMania 23, there was a hair versus hair match between Donald Trump and Vince McMahon. In this match, Donald Trump was represented by Bobby Lashley. This year, the night before WrestleMania, Bobby Lashley won the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. And then once again, Trump in 2009 would come back and purchase Raw when he would sell Raw back to Vince a week later. And then to top this all off, when Donald Trump was president, he appointed Vince McMahon's wife, Linda McMahon, to his cabinet, where she was the administrator of the Small Business Administration. So on March 31st, I made a post about the hush money scandal. And of course, Vince McMahon was involved in his own hush money scandal. Last year in July, he was ousted from the WWE after several hush money scandals came to light. Now, McMahon technically didn't break any laws, so he stepped down, but he was able to come back and has essentially appointed himself as president of the company to oversee this sale. In numerology, something very important to understand is this number 113. No number is associated with a theme so much as the number 113 is associated with lying. All these words on your screen sum to 113, whether it's dishonest, not honest, not true, not factual, fiction, illusions, bullshit, politics, insolvent, broadcasting, mainstream. All of these sum to 113, even perjury, which is the legal term for lying. 113. Now, 113 weeks before Vince McMahon and Donald Trump squared off in a hair versus hair match, Vince McMahon famously tore his quadriceps at the Royal Rumble in 2005. And I actually did a post on this back in 2021, over 2 years ago. I explained this connection between Vince McMahon and John Kennedy, but I talked a lot about this 2005 Royal Rumble ending. I should probably not smart to play the video. Yeah, it's already been taken down. So the world of wrestling is fascinating these days because this was an event where most fans think it was a botch, but I don't think it was. I believe that John Cena and Batista staged the ending of this match to make it look like it was an accident, but everything was planned. After they botched this ending, Vince McMahon came storming out of the backstage area. And the cameras cut to him immediately, which tells me that this whole thing was planned. And as Vince McMahon slid into the ring, he tore his quadriceps, but he actually tore both his quadriceps. And then somehow, he was able to walk off under his own power, which is kind of hard to believe for a guy who was in his 50s or 60s at the time. This seems like a serious injury. And again, I contend that it was fake. This post, linked in my blog, check it out for yourself. But what I found out is that if you measure from the date that Vince tore his quadriceps to the hair versus hair match, it was exactly 113 weeks. In the alphabetic order, quadriceps sums to 113. Hair versus hair equals 113. Detroit, Michigan, when abbreviated, equals 113. That was the site of this hair versus hair match. And that match was dubbed the Battle of the Billionaires. And notice how Battle of the Billionaires equals 113. So now this weekend, the same weekend that Trump gets indicted, Shane McMahon comes out and he tears his quadriceps. Shane McMahon, the son of Vince, his only son. And once again, the match in which he tore his quadriceps was against a man with the middle name Gregory. Donald Trump, indicted for his involvement with Stormy Daniels, whose middle name is Gregory. And again, this is her maiden name, which she kept apparently as one of her middle names. Just like The Miz, Gregory. What are the odds of that? Especially for a woman, right? For a woman to have the name Gregory, it's even less likely. Furthermore, Donald Trump had a theme song called Money, Money, Money. And Shane McMahon's WWE theme song is called Here Comes the Money. So both of these guys enter the ring with this money theme. Now, Vince McMahon tore his quadriceps at the Royal Rumble. And this was Shane McMahon's first WWE appearance since last year's Royal Rumble, when he was reportedly kicked out of the company for booking the main event terribly. So we explained the 666 connection between Vince McMahon and John F. Kennedy. But there's also a strong 666 connection between Vince McMahon and Donald Trump. First of all, notice how in reduction, Donald Trump has matching gematria with 666. And he's famous for giving out that circle 666 hand sign, right? Well, Vince McMahon was born 294 days before Donald Trump. The number 666, when written out, equals 294 ordinal. Furthermore, 603 score and 6, with the ampersand, also 294. When you write out 666 and triple sixes, you get a gematria value of 156. We talked about this number earlier in the decode because the 156th prime number is 911. 156, a number connected to WWE very strongly. When Donald Trump purchased Raw in the year 2009, it was on the 15th of June, or 15/6. And that date was 2 years and 75 days after his WrestleMania appearance in that hair versus hair match. And when you write out 666 in the alphabetic order, it sums to 275. When Donald purchased Raw, it was on a date with numerology of 50 and 23. And remember, Donald equals 50 and 23. He appeared at WrestleMania 23. The 50th prime number is 229, and it's the 229th verse of Revelation that reveals the number of the beast as 666. Also, in regards to the number 23, if you take 2 divided by 3, you get 0.666 repeating. All right, so I want to talk a little bit more about JFK. I guess before I do, I want to point out September 11th, I keep changing to the wrong slide there. September 11th is also the date that many historians believe Jesus was actually born. So think about how this connects to April 3rd, the date of the sale announcement when many people believe Jesus died. Again, it all traces back to Christianity, whether people want to accept that or not. So again, real quick, back to JFK. JFK was born in 1917 and then died in 1963. Remember these 4-digit numbers, 1917 and 1963. In English Standard Gematria, the cipher on the right side of your screen, the typical A through Z alphabetic order with the old Greek and Hebrew denary chart style. Notice how the number 63 in Gematria equals 1917. And the year 63 is when Kennedy died, but he was born in 1917. Well, the number 23 equals 1963. And again, Donald equals 23 at WrestleMania 23. And when Donald Trump purchased Monday Night Raw, it was one day after his 63rd birthday. Remember, 63, 1917, that Kennedy number. Also, money sums to 63 in reverse. So we had all of this big news, this corporate sale between WWE and UFC. The same day as the second night of WrestleMania, April 2nd, we learned about the death of a former WWE Hall of Fame inductee, Bushwhacker Butch. Now, if you grew up with wrestling like I did, the Bushwhackers are probably some fond memories. I mean, I was always surprised they were in the WWE Hall of Fame. I don't remember them being that great. They were just very unique. Well, on April 2nd, Bushwhacker Butch passes away, the same day as Night 2 of WrestleMania 39. Notice his real name was Robert Miller. Well, in the language of Gematria, Robert Miller equals 78. So does the first name Robert in ordinal, 78. And it just so happens that Bushwhacker Butch, Robert Miller, dead at the age of 78. Notice how the names Robert and Miller both sum to 39 in reverse reduction. He died on the same date as WrestleMania 39. 39, another number of sacrifice in the septenary system. When the Bushwhackers were inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, it occurred on a date with a life lesson number of 39. Now, one of the reasons this might be is because when you add the two names of the men in the Bushwhacker tag team, you get a Latin value of 1670, and 167 is the 39th prime number. And once again, the same day as the merger with Ultimate Fighting Championship, which equals 390. Also, Ultimate Fighting Championship, we looked at this 119 value, right? 1019. Well, 1019 is the 171st prime number, and 171 is the ordinal value of the Bushwhackers. The name Robert Miller also sums to 33 in reduction, both names. WrestleMania 39 equals the 33rd triangular number. WrestleMania took place in the year 2023, which is the Gematria value of WrestleMania 39, 223. The Bushwhackers also equals 223 with capital letters. Of course, that's the 48th prime number. And Bushwhackers also equals 48. Here we have the first Bushwhacker dying in 2023. Now, one more thing that stood out is that when you measure between the birth dates of the two Bushwhackers, you get 809 days. And that's the 140th prime number. Well, WrestleMania equals 140, and WrestleMania 39 equals 89. Also, Robert Miller, Bushwhacker Butch, 140. Now, there may be a connection to Vince McMahon through all this, since Vince playing Walt Disney was a big part of the news. Bushwhacker Butch died 163 days after his birthday, and we see this number a lot when it comes to death, because 163 is the 308th or 38th prime number. Death, killing, murder, RIP, all 38. the murder by numbers poster, coding 38 into it. Well, it just so happens that Bushwhacker Butch was born a span of 308 days before Vince McMahon. So how interesting that someone with numbers that align to Vince dies the day before Vince comes back and sells the WWE. Just another note about all of this. This WWE UFC, this is essentially a merger. I mean, they're calling it a sale. But with WWE at $9 billion, UFC at $12 billion, for all intents and purposes, it really is a merger. Now, the word eclipse equals 39. And again, this was WrestleMania 39 when this all happened. Last weekend, I made a video on the eclipse numerology of Cody Rhodes' father, Dusty Rhodes. And Cody Rhodes, one of the most unique stories in pro wrestling, left WWE a few years ago, very unsatisfied, but then came back, and now he's headlining WrestleMania against Roman Reigns. So Cody is the son of famous Dusty Rhodes. And Dusty Rhodes died 347 days after Cody's birthday in 2015. 347 is the 69th prime number. Rhodes died at the age of 69. Cody's birth sign is Cancer, which has the sideways 69. The name Rhodes equals 69 in ordinal. The words lunar and eclipse both equal 69. And not only was Dusty Rhodes born 69 days before the next total lunar eclipse, but he also died 69 days after the last total lunar eclipse. And 69, again, eclipse, 69, lunar, 69. And think about how an eclipse is the merging of the sun and the moon in the sky. So when I did this decode, I knew there was something huge going on that weekend, but of course, this was before this news of the sale really broke through. And now we have a merger, which, again, is linked up with the eclipse code. And when it comes to mergers and the eclipse code, there's really no better example than the National Football League. For the first 50 years of the NFL's existence, there was just one league, right? And then in the 60s, they started to merge with the American Football League. Those two leagues would combine and create the new National Football League. The NFL was founded in the year 1920, which represents the numbers 192. In Latin Gematria, the word eclipse sums to 192. Well, in the alphabetic order, eclipse equals 69. And in the Latin order, which is this Latin cipher but dropped down to an ordinal base 1 through 27, eclipse equals 66. Now, in the NFL season beginning in 66, the NFL and AFL started to play the Super Bowl against each other. This would continue through the 69 season. And then in the year 1970, the merger completed. And they became one league where they would play each other during the regular season as well. And think about this year, 1970, when the NFL-AFL merger was completed. Cody Rhodes, for this year's WrestleMania, was exactly 1,970 weeks old for his match against Roman Reigns. And the event was held in Los Angeles, California, which equals 197. 197, the 45th prime number. Remember Donald Trump, the 45th president. But 197 is another number that's connected to the moon and its 19-year metonic cycle. So all of these numbers of merging, that were also found in the NFL, were right here in the Cody Rhodes main event, as I discussed last week. And then sure enough, we get this merger. By the way, as in regards to 1970, Shane McMahon, who curiously tore his quads at WrestleMania, was born in the year 1970. the same year that the NFL and AFL merged together. To make that even more interesting is when you type out AFL, NFL, or no, it was AFC and NFC. These are the two conferences that now exist within the NFL. And this sums to 33 and 69, just like the word eclipse. 33 and 69. And before I forget, I should try and bring up that image. Let's see, where would this be? I think I included this in the Damar Hamlin, but let's see. All right, well, maybe it is time to wrap this live stream up since my computer wants to freeze up on me. All right, guys, well, I guess that's all I got. What I was going to point out is that the shape of the football is the same as the Vesica Piscis, which is the shape that's created when the sun and moon begin to merge with one another. All right, so thanks to everybody for tuning in, whether you're watching live or archived. Feel free to share, like, subscribe, etc. Thanks again. This work is viewer-supported. Check the links down in the description below for more information, or a link to the memberships on the site, which will also give you access to new features on the calculator. All right, everyone. Peace, love, God bless. We'll talk to you next time. See ya.